sitting with me right now is a young lady by the name of Patricia A. Thomas. She is a coach. And so, welcome to Caribbean Classroom.
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate it.
I want to say Dr. Patricia A. Thomas, but
Not quite.
Not quite.
I can't claim that yet.
you can't claim it yet. But you could claim it anytime you choose to.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
we'll
you've done a
see.
lot of work.
I have.
You have done.
It's been a blessing.
Pat has an operation that she calls Thomas Coaching. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, 17 years ago, I started a firm to help people who are working on their careers, who are leaders in business, both large companies and small companies and nonprofits, who are looking to do better and accelerate their careers and make transitions and have better results overall. So it's been quite an honor to work with hundreds of clients.
And we're talking big multinational corporations.
We're talking Fortune 1000 firms as well as very small nonprofits and volunteer organizations across the country. So it's been an honor.
Across the country?
Across the country.
Not just New York?
And also internationally. I've worked with firms in Canada, France, and Ireland as well. So it's been a wonderful ride, and I had a coaching experience when I was in corporate America, and it changed me so significantly that I said, when I leave the company, I would like to do this for others.
So now, when you say coaching, we coaching the CEOs or the lay workers?
Both. We're coaching the leaders of firms as well as the teams that work under them.
And the idea of coaching, because I've never heard of it until talking to you.
Okay.
And the idea of a coach, I would say a job coach, is that a good description?
A career coach?
Career coach. Is to help you do what? I mean, help you improve on what you're doing? Or?
Improve on what you're doing, accelerate your results. Here's an example of a coaching engagement.
Okay.
Someone's just been promoted. They are now a manager of 20 people on a team. We call that onboarding. For the first 90 to 120 days, we work with that person to help him or her establish themselves in the job, not just with their employees, but also with the other people that they have to work and collaborate with in the workplace.
Okay.
So that's an example of someone coming to a coach to work with them to help them get situated in a new job.
Okay.
Another example could be someone who has a huge objective in their business. They've got multi-millions to make by the end of the year, and they don't know quite how to get there, how to accelerate their progress. So a coach will come in and help them figure out how to navigate the corporate waters and get to their results. So it really covers a wide spectrum of possibilities.
Okay. No, but no, you have translated that or transposed that from coaching corporate heads and managers, etc., to coaching families.
Yes. Yes, and I'm very pleased to share information about a new initiative that I'm working on, John. And it has to do with people who are in need of support after some traumatic event has happened. Okay. We think of PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder associated only with people who've been in the military or first responders. But actually, more Americans are suffering from a form of PTSD because of some traumatic event that they've experienced or that they've witnessed others experience.
Well, what come to mind is like somebody losing their job.
Someone losing their job could certainly cause definitely high anxiety for a family member who's responsible. And, with the job market back and forth changes, it hasn't been easy to find comparable employment for a lot of people. But it could also be something that's caused by a natural disaster. So it could be a flood, an earthquake, or a fire. It could also be something much more significant like sexual abuse or domestic abuse and things that would cause people a lot of high anxiety.
But to take you, let's come to modern day. So the child that was in the car where the cop shot the father.
Yes.
And the wife, even though she was videotaping, that could have a psychological impact on both of them.
On both of them. And what happens is in cases like that, many times people submerge the experience because they have to get through survival mode. And we saw that beautiful woman keep her wits about her in the most outrageous situations where even a gun was pointed at her after the initial shot was fired. And the little girl is looking to support her mother, but that is an enduring memory that it would be wonderful to be able to help her release the emotional charge associated with that memory, which, because it was her father, could in fact be a traumatic situation.
No, I mean, staying on that for a minute, and I'm veering way off the topic. No, the next day or 2 days later, the Daily News headline is Giuliani says that all black kids are killers.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. But that's feeding the fire of racial tension in the country, and that doesn't help. Because we also know that when we think of PTSD, the percentage of those affected by it tend to be higher. The rates are higher for African Americans, for Latinos, and Native Americans when you compare the numbers for Caucasians. So that kind of rhetoric doesn't help the situation, doesn't recognize that people may be suffering for a number of reasons and actually need support and help to get through it.
How do we recognize that?
Yeah. Well, let's just take people from the military and first responders. Many times they have been diagnosed by, let's say, the Veterans Administration, and often the prescription is psychiatric care and drugs to help quell or quench the quiet the person's emotion, and sometimes they self-medicate as well with either alcohol or drugs because the tension is so high. What's really happening is the brain is trying to protect them from the initial trauma, and in doing so they're reliving the memory over and over again. It could be a trigger like a sound or some gesture that triggers the memory again. And the brain is there to keep us all alive, and that's why they really revisit the trauma time and time again. So what we're really focused on is helping people to recognize that this is something that the brain is affected by. It's the memory that has an emotional charge. And if we can go in and somehow affect the brain in a positive way without the use of drugs or psychiatry, it's possible that we can actually give people a lot of relief. That the brain is so plastic that if you have certain interventions, you can actually create new pathways in the brain that bypass the emotional charge associated with that traumatic memory.
Isn't that when you bypass it, aren't you setting yourself up for later on something else that is not, you're not regulating it, actually, hit the trigger and then boom, explosion?
Well, the goal is for that activity to subside over time. For some people, it could be immediate. For others, it might take a series of interventions to reduce the level of distress. And that's exactly what myself and a group of trained coaches from around the world are focused on beginning an initiative. It officially launches on August 1st, but we are working pro bono with people in the month of July to actually apply the intervention and to begin to see the results among people.
So someone who is or think that they have a situation going on right now,
yes,
can contact you?
They can contact me, absolutely, because what I'm doing is I'm actually providing the process, which, by the way, let me speak to it because I haven't explained what it is. It's an alternative approach. We know alternative medicine is some rage today, and it's important because there are many solutions to medical problems.
Rather than go for medication.
Exactly, but in this case it is a function of acupressure in certain points on certain parts of the body that actually clear the meridians in the body and approach the brain so that the person can relieve the emotional charge associated with the trauma that is part of that memory that they continue to have.
Oh no, but he's in Atlanta. I have a potential client for you.
Wonderful.
I interviewed him over the weekend. And somebody crude too, it seems like.
You may know someone.
He relayed to me the torture that he went through while he was a detainee during the revolution period in Grenada.
Wow. Yes.
And they fed him, in one instance, he explained that they would feed him and the other detainees, where the soldiers would eat their food. After they finished chewing up the bones, put it in the food that they're going to feed the detainees, mix it and give to them.
Cruelty.
Cruelty. And he was never able to speak about it before. And I've been putting pressure on him to talk to me and like put it out there.
Yes.
You know, at least let's record it, let's put it out there and give you some relief. Is it good to encourage that kind of activity, or is it better to have it pulled out by the coach?
Well, I mean,
or let it stay dormant?
There are certain cases where, you know, the medical professionals are going to be the better option, but it's important to try alternative approaches because they may actually work and give people some measure of relief. But to your point about whether things can go back to the way they were, once you release the energy and create a new pathway in the brain, it's almost as if that part is no longer active. And so you're really creating another pathway for another thought to really take over the memory and release you.
And so you are able to come in and sit with the family and or the individual.
Yes.
And sort of
work through the intervention.
Work through that.
The intervention.
Okay.
And you mentioned something very important, because we often think about the individual that's been through the experience, but we know that the impact is on the family as well.
Absolutely.
Because many of the behaviors they are victims of,
they affect everybody.
and they don't necessarily understand why or what to do. And so our goal is not just to work with the individuals affected, but with the partners and spouses who may be the recipients of some of the behaviors that are natural outcomes of PTSD, and certainly with the children who witness a lot and may not understand it, but actually take to the intervention in a really magnificent way. And when we think about how large this issue is, John, 70% of the American population has had some effect of PTSD. And we're talking about over 220 million people in just the U.S. affected by PTSD, knowing that communities of color are affected even more because issues of community violence in our cities, which we hear more and more about every day, also many times end up as PTSD.
Yeah. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm trying to figure out, I know quite a few people who are, you know, in traumatic situations and dramatic situations.
Yes.
And need your intervention.
Yes. Well, I'd love to work with.
No, I mean because the day-to-day stress of, I know of a mother right now with a son, 17-year-old son, and he's putting her through the ringer, and she could talk to you as a coach.
Absolutely, I could talk to her. I could talk
and the family,
to the person. Exactly.
Because he's been raining on that family for a while now.
Yeah.
And putting them through all. There's one family in Brooklyn that the kids end up burning the house.
Wow.
And they're grown men.
Grown children, yeah.
You know, and so on. Now, give them your contact information.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear from anyone who is interested, especially in this month of July when we're focused on our pro bono services to expose people to the process. And it can be done both live and it can be done online.
Okay.
So that's a convenience factor for people, and it really works as effectively. My email is pat@thomascoaching.com. And I would love to hear from people who would like to learn more about the process and may have some desire to experience the intervention. It doesn't hurt. It's very simple, but very, very powerful. And again, it's an example of an alternative approach that does not use any drugs or medication. I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a coach. So we are coaches who are working this issue to help people. And right now we're looking at starting with 82,000 first responders and veterans in the August to October timeframe. So that is how large this initiative is going to be growing.
I was going to ask that has any of the law enforcement agencies reached out to you, or you reached out to them to try to, to have you working with?
Not as yet, but there is an organization that's focused on PTSD survivors in particular that is involved. And I'm very happy to say that the UN, UNICEF, and very large nonprofits are observing this work so that they can begin to support it in their own way, in their initiatives. So a lot of NGOs are involved in looking at this. We'll be evaluating the effectiveness of it because there's reporting by the clients to say, you know, has there been an impact or not? So it's not just us saying that we've been effective. And there will be lots of outcomes as a result of this trial for 90 days starting in August. And what I'd love to be able to do is come back and share
come back anytime.
some
You
statistics.
just call me, just say, listen, I'm back in town, or I have some new information. You just had to call me up.
I would love that.
I stand on no ceremony.
Okay, great, because that way I could actually follow up and show what actually has happened.
And I'm going to put, there are two people I'm going to put you in touch with. Dr. McIntosh, Carol McIntosh.
Yes.
Who is a OBGYN, and she's the borough commander for Queens North.
Okay. Oh, good.
Borough commander, I'm going to put you in touch with both of them people who I'm sure you could, you know,
Could work with.
Could get some things done.
That'd be wonderful.
Because she has the entire borough of north of Queens, so
Yes.
you know, so which is great. Pat, this is magnificent. This is magnificent.
Thank you, John. I'm excited.
I mean, no, I want to make it kind of. I understand it, but for the viewer, is this similar to, say, having a coach, like, say, somebody's giving birth to a child?
Giving birth to a child.
Like
that's
a midwife coaching that pregnant woman through the process.
In a sense, yes, because we perform a process with the client who's going through it.
Right.
To make sure that it's actually having the impact, and we're observing the reduction in the trauma literally live in the session. So I guess we could consider it like a midwife. You're coaching someone through to some outcome, in this case relief from the tension and the high anxiety associated with the PTSD, whatever the event was.
'Cause some of us have headaches and we don't know why we have headaches.
Exactly.
And excruciating pain, and we don't understand.
Why?
It'd be normal last night, and then today it's you know.
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring that up too. Just as another point is, when you work on a memory, you're not really aware of what else is connected to that memory. So we call those threads. If you treat one of the memories, all of a sudden other memories surface, and then you can treat those because you didn't even realize they were connected or submerged because of the big memory that kind of had the most impact. So we do a lot of good over time.
Okay, I know I'm way over on this segment, but it's important that I think we had this coverage, so her name is Patricia A. Thomas, executive coach. I love that, and you could go to thomascoaching.com, thomascoaching.com, and pick up some more information. You are watching Caribbean Classroom. My name is John Crow, the host and the producer. Coming up next, we're going to speak to some young people